every year the number appears.
Dan, why are you whispering like you're narrating a holiday commercial for the end of the world?
Because, Dan, come on, look, Clair Obscura Expedition 33 is about a mysterious godlike paintress who paints a number in the sky.
Yeah, and when she paints it, everyone dies?
Exactly.
Which is wild, because when I turned 33, all I got was backache and a sudden urge to say we should probably get there early.
Yeah, but in the game, humanity responds to this cosmic horror by sending out brave expeditions to stop her.
Yeah, but in real life, we respond by sending texts like, sorry I missed your birthday, work's been a bit crazy.
Yeah, but this is a dark, emotional RPG all about mortality.
With turn-based combat?
Strategic turn-based combat.
Yeah, because nothing heightens existential dread like waiting patiently for the enemy to finish their move.
Yeah, but you gather a team, you fight fate itself.
And miss a parry because the timing was ever so slightly off.
Yeah, but the art is surreal, beautiful, French.
Yeah, sad paintings, doomed people and stylish despair. Trey apocalypse.
Anyway, today we're talking about Clair Obscura Expedition 33.
So if you don't know it yet, don't worry.
We'll explain it all.
And if you're already 33, good luck.
Dan with a gaming flair, pixel dreams and worlds to share, joystick tales and button cues. Welcome to Gaming Views.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Gaming Views with me, Dan H. I'll be your main host for this evening, and he's the Gustav to my Mael, but let's hope he lasts a little bit longer than just the first act. It's Mr. Danny P. How you doing, buddy?
What you doing to me? And we should say before we go in, clearly spoilers for this game.
Oh shit, yeah, sorry. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoilers for Expedition 33. I think you should probably add it at the start. No, I'm doing all right. Thank you. We are, again, that little secret peek behind the curtain. We're recording this just before New Year, even though this is the first episode of New Year. So Happy New Year again, everyone. And Dan.
Happy New Year, Dan.
I'm just about able to fit between the chair and the table at the moment. The amount I've eaten is.
have you gone a bit mad?
Yeah, we've allowed it this year. Yeah, we've allowed it.
Dan has allowed it. I have allowed us to eat more than we should do.
Yeah, no. We've said, look, let's go for it, and then. Well, that was, you remember yesterday when I messaged you, when was it? Christmas night, wasn't it? And I said, are you going for a walk?
Please, can we go for a walk? Please.
I was so relieved when you said yeah. Yeah, no, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
It was more of a waddle. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm looking forward. I'm going away on a little break shortly in a couple of days, which would be nice. Nice. We always go away for New Year's just to get away, because who wants to be near people? So we go and do that and take the dog on the beach and things like that, which would be nice. We're not going abroad. We're going to make it sound really fancy. No, we're just going just to the coast in the UK. You're notoriously drab.
You're not going on an expedition.
I'm going on an expedition, Dan. Yeah, a very dangerous expedition, of which there's been 32 previously, apparently. So yes. So no, but I'm really good. I'm looking forward to this because obviously I finished this very recently, and I think I've had a bit of a journey with it. I know you've played it earlier in the year and loved it, so it's going to be an interesting exploration of a game that's of the moment, I think, given all the awards and everything it's won. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation that we're going to have.
I love the fact that we're talking about this, because I didn't think it would be an episode we would do, only because at the start you were saying you weren't getting into the game. And that's fine, because we don't all love the same games.
Was it okay?
Well,
it's fine.
The fact that I loved it. But yeah, and I messaged you and I said, I'm really glad you gave it a second chance, because when you messaged me after completing it, and and I won't say what you said, but you said you really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's just great, because it just shows that we've seen that in social media, etc., with the kind of the fallout that's happened from the awards. And we said beforehand, look, if we're not necessarily going to pick up on some of the controversies, if you want that, we've discussed that in the last couple of episodes. Yep. So subscribe everything and everywhere. push a button.
Nice. I was about to do housekeeping. God, honestly, this is non-alcoholic. I'm just saying, but housekeeping.
Housekeeping. I've lost my total train of thought now. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, sorry. And people were like, there was one of those YouTubers, what was his name? Was it Shroud? Was before the awards telling people vote for Ark Raiders or basically anything else, not for Expedition. But he subsequently played it and as himself said, I get it. And it's a shame people are saying don't play it, but the fact that they're now giving it a chance.
I don't think anyone should ever say don't play a game, even if it is Dark Souls. I don't think anyone should ever say don't play it. I think you're well within your rights to say go and try it, all right? Because what's one man's junk is another man's treasure, right? So they might love it where you don't love it. Just you do you. Right, we'll start with a normal though, Dan. What have you been playing?
Not much since it's only been a handful of days since we last recorded.
Secrets.
But no, I've really I've just been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrated Super Deluxe Edition Extraordinaire, whatever it is. No,
that's the right name.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end. I think I'm on chapter 17. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's funny, granted it's an old game done up, but it's interesting that we're kind of talking about another sort of RPG, and I'm looking at how different things have become.
I was worried about this one. This one's taken away the turn-based elements completely.
Yeah.
It's a bit random.
Yeah.
This is no longer a JRPG. It's more of a Western RPG again, or an action RPG.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the time with it. I've got about 25 hours into it. I said one chapter to go. I think I missed out. I cut myself off from a few side quests, unfortunately. It feels like it drags a little bit in places, and I don't know if that's because they've expanded it. But generally really enjoyed it. And I can't wait because there's the intermission DLC that's bundled in with it, which is why it's called the Integrate. So I'll crack on with that. And then, next time we played this, hopefully I'll have played something else.
Nice. It's always weird, isn't it, when they do these rebuilds or remakes and they add in content that they didn't have before, and quite often you find it's just padding. It's like there's a reason you cut that. It's like when you see extended cuts of movies and you're like, oh, I get why you can, because it keeps the pacing or it keeps an element that otherwise was not there, which is so I'll continue playing it. I will have another go. I haven't picked it up since we last spoke. And in fact, over Christmas, I hadn't played, since we previously recorded, any games. It's been all family and the kids wanted to play board games. That's a lie. We did play Mario Kart last night. I got thrashed soundly by my 12 and 11-year-olds. That's my life now. I'm just, because they play it religiously. Yeah. I just get beaten continually. In fact, we were playing, so there's a mode where you continually race until you don't come in a certain place. So there's 20 of you or whatever, and then if you don't come in the top 16, you go out. If you don't come in there's like a knockout. And I was in first, going through the gate that you had to come 12th or above, and I got hit with every single accumulation of missiles, shells, everything you can imagine, and I was then in 14th just as I crossed the finish line. So they all finished it. My daughter won, and I was sitting there going, well, I'll go and do something else then. I do a gaming podcast, man.
Does it still do that thing where, if you're in first place, all they'll give you is like a speed boost, but every bugger behind you has got...
Oh, you don't even get speed boost now, it's just a coin.
Oh, it's just a coin, yeah.
You just get coin and everyone else gets everything else.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, so you're just being hammered by that squid ink or whatever. And
blue shells and gold shells. It's a fix. Yeah, Mario Kart's fix. That's what I'm saying. That's why. But I did pick up today. I did say, I promised myself I would do. So today I picked up Ghosts of Yotai. And I've started playing that. I've played probably a couple of hours, maybe an hour and a half. And that game is absolutely, I mean, we're going to talk about beautiful games today, but that game is just something else. I mean, it's stunning. And I haven't even explored the map yet. I've only been to a couple of locales, and it's just gobsmacking. I don't know how they've done that. I mean, Sucker Punch have always done well with the PlayStation in terms of development, but my God, that game is awesome. It just looks gorgeous. And right now it looks like everything Assassin's Creed wished it could be. Because when I played Shadows, that felt like a leap ahead of Ghost of Tsushima. In places, in certain places it didn't, but in terms of the visuals and things like that, it certainly looked stunning. This is another level again. And my God, yeah, it just looks brilliant. And it's just everything. The combat is so smooth and effective. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to smash through that now. That's going to be my game at the moment.
Look forward to hearing about that, because I've heard some really good things about that. Yeah, the only other thing I've done is I've read a book for the first time in ages. Because you bought me a book, so thank you very much. You bought me a book, so you forced me to read a book. But no, it's a really good one. I think, what's it called? Good Game, No Rematch, I think.
Yeah.
And it's about this journalist, isn't it? I think he's a games journalist, and he's talking about growing up and his life intertwined with games. And a lot of it, there's a few things that I remembered about a kid growing up. And I think he's probably, if not our age, maybe just a few years younger. So a lot of the things that we've discussed, even on here, it's really striking a chord. And it's a really interesting story. So I'm reading it both with like a smile on my face, because some of the funny things he's saying, but then he's kind of interspersing it with some like home truths of it, or some home sort of things that he grew up with. And
right.
Yeah, so far it's been a fascinating read. So yeah, thank you for making me put the controller down and pick up a book.
Should you thank me for that or not?
So coming next week, reading views. So
you're going to turn up and go, I haven't played anything. I've read a couple of books though. Yeah. Dan's got me addicted to them.
Yeah, I don't like games anymore.
Do you know what? If we do that, I'm going to find it really difficult to put clips in to the YouTube episode. Just pages turning.
Yeah, a clip of page 5.
I'll definitely get done for copyright if I just put the entire book up, just turning the pages. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Right, what we're here today to do, let's talk about Clair Obscura Expedition 33.
Yeah, or as I called it. Well, no, before we recorded, I mean, you were talking about...
No, I
was going to say, save your blushes as well. What did I call the game? I was distracted, clearly. That's my excuse. And you said about the game, and I called it Ransom 36 for some reason.
Ransom 36? Yeah. You had a bit of a conniption or something and just decided to...
Yeah, I think my brain had a bit of lag. But no, yeah, what you said sounds right.
Yeah, Clair Obscura Expedition 33. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about that one.
So it better be.
Yeah.
Right, so for those of you who aren't aware, this is a game by Sandfall Interactive. It is a very French Japanese RPG, which makes it sound very random, but I think has breathed a bit of new life into the JRPG format, made it more action orientated. It's got mechanics in there, which we will get into, which have given the JRPG a bit of an evolution and moved it forward. I've certainly enjoyed playing it a lot more than other JRPGs I've previously played in terms of the combat system and mechanics, and some of the other elements as well, some of the currency elements and bits that I've really enjoyed this game, and I had a very odd journey with it. So I picked it up when it came onto Game Pass. I played it for maybe an hour and a half. I think I got to, what did I say to you? I got to the first map area where you go in and it's like an underwater piece. I can't remember the name of it specifically because it was so long ago. And I basically got there, found the mansion, found my owl, and then immediately got lost and went, I'm just going to stop, because I came out the same way I went in. So didn't progress any further and went, and I went to camp and I found something else to play and kind of abandoned my expedition. And then I went back to it a few weeks ago and picked it up again and just smashed through it and found myself thoroughly enjoying it. And I will talk about the bits that I've enjoyed and the bits that I haven't liked so much. And I know you'll want to do the same, but you played it earlier in the year, didn't you? So your memory maybe isn't as fresh.
Yeah. So I played it when it came out. So one thing I want to say is I kind of listened back to an episode of Talking Smack. So Talking Smack had me on to talk about this, actually. So hi to Josh and the gang at Talking Smack. And it's interesting, you said, yeah, you played it obviously because of Game Pass. I remember not knowing about this game. This game kind of crept up on me. So much so that a week before it released, there was a guy I worked with at the time. He said, you're going to play Clair Obscura Expedition 33. And I thought, I didn't even know what that was. So I had a look. And then obviously, because once you Google something or have a look on TikTok, that's it. Your feed for the next sort of 70 days is going to be that. And I saw some clips of it and I thought, my word, this looks like a really, really good game, right? And so yeah, I played it on release on Game Pass. And, this is the thing about it. Whatever we say, and we've criticised Game Pass and Microsoft in the past because of, sort of how it's handling it. But I guess this is where it really stands out, is because I didn't know much about it. I probably wouldn't have bought it full price because of that. But I played it day of release and absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So much so, what I will say is, because my Game Pass is running out, and at the time I thought, do I sort of upgrade to the deluxe version because I want to put some money, because I'd not paid for it. I bought it. It's on sale for Steam. I got it off one of the websites. So I bought it actually last night. So I've got it on the Steam Deck now so I can play through it again.
And of course, it's now certified for Steam Deck after the last update, which makes you even happier.
Yeah. So, and it was funny. It was one of the times where I was thinking that I actually kind of feel bad possibly, but that I've not put money into the game because I had so much fun with it and it's such a brilliantly made game. But yeah. So, but yeah.
I did play it on Game Pass exclusively, to be honest. Will I pick it up? Because I've got a ROG, there's not much need for me to pick it up anywhere else, because I'll only really play on either that or the Xbox anyway if I do play it again, which I could do, theoretically, because there's much more content to go through after the latest release, which we'll get to a bit later. But let's talk a bit about the conception and the genesis of the studio itself, so Sandfall Interactive. So this is Guillaume Broche, who was a former Ubisoft associate producer, and he had a passion for turn-based RPGs. I think it's fair to say. You can probably say that. And he began a prototype of this game using the Unreal Engine. I think it was Unreal 4 at the time, titled We Lost, during the pandemic. So broadly, a lot of the beats remain the same from the prototype that he created. And certainly the characters remain the same, and the naming of the characters. Now, whether they're the same characters or not, probably not, but certainly the naming convention remained the same. And then he went on in October 2020 to form Sandfall Interactive, with actually a name he took from one of his previous games that he'd worked on at Ubisoft. So he, along with Tom Guillemin, who is CTO, and Francois Maurice, is a COO, they created this kind of studio with a philosophy of creating AAA quality games with a really lean team of around 30 developers, which sounds like a lot, but that is lean, right, for what we know AAA titles these days. And there's been a lot, I think, recently about, his comments around, it was a team of 30, but actually they used a lot of external support. So people were kind of questioning whether it was 30 or whether it was much more than that, because there are a lot of teams from, I think, Korea and things like that helped develop this stuff. So it's an interesting journey to kind of leave a major production studio or house like Ubisoft and spin off and create your own company. So props to the guy for doing that. But then to have this single vision as well of what he wanted to do, to create this studio. The game came first, essentially, right? So, the game came first, then the studio, to create that single vision that he had. And got to say, it worked, right? Because...
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, because, and wasn't it the fact that these are all people I'm not going to say were bored, but I think they got frustrated by maybe being hampered in their other jobs in what they could or couldn't do. And so this was set up with the vision, as you said, to create like a labour of love, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's, I don't, I guess it's conjecture whether he was bored or whether he was, but I think there was certainly clearly had more passion to do the thing he was working on. It's like having a side hustle and then going, do you know what, I'm going to go and do that for a living and see how it works out. And for it to work out and turn out, exactly like it has, is phenomenal. So I guess throughout the development, as there is with all these developments, there's this risk, financial risk around it, but it was propped up by some French companies to help, and the government actually, to help continue to build this game for the studio. I've got detail on kind of what that was and what that funding was, but I don't think it's really important to the story and what we're looking at. A lot of studios will go through this and need rounds of funding for these games, but clearly there was a lot of faith in what he was producing. And it wasn't, we're not talking millions and millions. It was, in the thousands. So, I think it was built on quite a tight budget.
What I was going to say here, though, is I think this has also fed into some of the criticisms it's got. And like I said, we won't necessarily go too much into them now because we've said about it, but like whether it's an indie game or not, when people have said about all the funding, especially from the government. But I guess, even our country, right, I think gives tax breaks for video game industry, doesn't it? So
yeah,
and I'm sure this is replicated around the world. So whilst we're not necessarily saying government's pumping money in, there's support there, I guess, for studios. But I think this hasn't helped with some of the backlash they've got.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, as you said, because the backlash has mainly been around two things. The whole AI piece, which we've talked about previously, I'm not going to go into today, but also, yeah, as it was funded, does that funding therefore mean it's not an indie game? I think it's very much still up for debate. We've said before that we've settled on it and kind of gone, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it was important that people loved it, played it, and it got awards for what it did do. And we'll talk about this a bit later in terms of the awards and things like that, because there's a very important point around what it's done for that game and what it's therefore meant, which is quite exciting. And as I said, we'll talk about it a bit later. But I want to talk a bit about kind of the world building and the narrative. The whole adventure, if you haven't played it, is set in the city of Lumiere, which is essentially a stand-in for Paris. It's a Belle Époque, a late 19th century version of Paris. There's even a melted kind of Eiffel Tower in there, right? There's a, so I think on the world map, a leaning tower of Eiffel, So, and the story setup is essentially that there's a yearly event where this godlike entity called the Paintress paints a number on a big stone monolith, and everyone that age, at the end of that painting that number, instantly dies and gets turned into lovely, dusty, petally things.
It's it's beautiful in a way, isn't it?
It is. It's a beautiful death, but it's referred to as the gommage or the erasing, I think in English, I think that is. And every year, since this has been happening, there has been an expedition by the people of Lumiere to stop the Paintress, eliminate, kill, whatever it's going to be. And so this one is specifically about Expedition 33, which is the 33rd expedition to go out. Obviously, their age is 33. And you initially start as 3 characters on this expedition. There's Gustave, there's Lune, and Maëlle. They are your primary expedition characters. I think you meet Maëlle a bit later, don't you? But she's essentially joins the party very soon early in the game. And they've essentially got 1 year, I guess, to kind of arrive and stop their deaths and the deaths of anyone thereafter. And that's essentially the setup for the game. I don't know if there's anything you want to add that I've missed or...
No, you're right. Yes, so they want to go. The aim is to defeat the Paintress and thus stop her painting that number and stop wiping generations out. I mean, are you going to talk a little bit about the opening setup though? Because I just want to focus on that, because I think for me that's also does a brilliant thing at why I like the game. Because this game, look, you don't come into this game expecting a happy time, right? This game is beautifully depressing, and I use that term carefully because it is a really heavy game, and the beginning for me sets that scene off, because it does actually lull you into that full sense of security, because it's really bright, it's really colourful. I think Gustave is doing it's disguised as a disguised tutorial, right? But you have like a little sparring session with Maëlle, don't you, on the rooftop? And then you're talking about, are you going to give a rose to your girlfriend? Clearly your girlfriend, and you meet your girlfriend, and then she's one of the people that gets gommaged, right? It's at that moment where, because again, I didn't know much about this game. Just at that point, my kind of jaw hit the floor, because that was a bit of a shock to me. And it just sets the game up perfectly, that you've got almost like this happy-go-lucky, there's a circus, there's like a fair in the town. I think you have to, do you not take part in some like carnival games? Yeah. And I thought, maybe it's not too bad. No.
It's weird. It's weird. I think what it does really well is it explores topics around, so the gommage forces topics to the surface that you wouldn't normally expect of a game. Topics such as suicide, as the choice of whether to have children or not in a relationship. All of these things that when it's that question of, if I know the day I'm going to die, what do I do before? How do I act before that?
Yeah.
Do I try and circumvent fate because I know I'm going to die? There's an absolute in this game. Or do I try and circumvent that by going, well, actually, I'll take my own life, because that comes up in topics of conversation around the game? Or do I even want to have children? Because if this continues, their life expectancy is it fair to do that? All of these kind of topics bubble to the surface. And a lot of that actually, within the first 20 or 30 minutes of that scene, like depending on who you talk to and the interactions that you have, these topics come up. And again, as you said, with your girlfriend, you clearly know walking into that. We as the player don't, but Gustave clearly knows going into that she's about to be gommaged, erased.
Yeah, and it must be the toll that must take because because I think they allude to it in the beginning. I can't remember if I've got this wrong, but yeah, about is it responsible then at that point to have children because soon those kids are going to be like orphaned at basically almost before they even turn one because we're now at 33, so everyone's 33 and above, so that's a young age, right? So
and that's a theme that continues throughout. So when you're talking to Lune and exploring her character backstory through these side stories, it's about her parents who were on a previous expedition and how through their notes and things that you find from them, they saw her as an immediate successor to them, rather than a child who could have their own life and express their own will and be free. They just wanted her to be the next thing to stop the. So it's really layered, and the more you explore and the more you feel about, or the more you take on board these points, and it's something I rarely do in games. I'll be honest. I very rarely kind of take a point of reading things or just going because I want to play the game, and so. It was really interesting to hear these and how it's expressed throughout the game, how these different stories and layers are expressed. I found it fascinating, and it was one of the things that eventually drew me into it, but not right at the start, weirdly.
Yeah. Okay. So
that was right at the start of this, I was just like, I just want I'll go and kill that thing so we stop this. That's the plan. Do that. Right. That's it.
I've written something down. I was going to say I've written something down because something you said has reminded me of something, but I don't want to talk about it until we discuss the ending because it make more sense then. But yeah, I mean, some people, again, we've said this game might not necessarily appeal to everyone, but this is the first game for a while that's actually made me think about what the characters are going through, I think, and how I would relate to it, not necessarily the whole Gamage thing, but certain elements, how you would relate it to you. What would you do in that scenario? So yeah, for me, that's what I want to say is it did a really good job of making me think about the characters. And
part of that I think is the way in which they're portrayed.
Absolutely.
So the game clearly won awards not just for the game itself but for the voice acting and many other elements in terms of the art direction and direction of itself, and a lot of that is in the way in which the characters, the little nuances in terms of the conversations you're having, the facial animation and what they're how they're portraying it is it draws you in and makes you want to understand more about them. I've said before, and I stand by it, is that there are elements where, and whether this may be in the translation, because clearly it was created as a French game, translated into English. And I don't know if some of that, the delivery felt a little bit wooden in parts, not all of it, but in parts that, for me, it felt a little bit like someone was reading off a page rather than putting effort into it. In much of it, it wasn't. But there were just parts where I was like, that felt a bit awkward. But I think that's because they were few and far between. It felt that way for that reason. It was like, if it was always like that, you go, yeah, right, fine. It's like watching an episode of EastEnders or whatever. But because it was so infrequent, it was a bit stood out. Get out my parry. So yeah, I think we'll talk more about this, but essentially that's the setup, right? So you join an expedition to start, and we've said before, if I didn't ruin it at the beginning, there are spoilers for this throughout. Yeah. So just be aware. Skip to the end and just watch us say subscribe or whatever, and then you'll be fine.
And come back to it. Come back to this episode. Yeah, and come back to us when you have. Yeah.
So you start off your expedition with your characters, and right at the beginning, and an expedition is not just 3 people; it's a whole army of people who have, I think, volunteered to go on this expedition, because Maëlle herself, being very young, volunteers to go on because she feels she has no purpose unless she does that, because she was raised as an orphan in the city.
Yeah.
So you
very,
go out.
Very close to Gustav, isn't she?
Yeah, I think, very close to Gustav.
Didn't he have something to do with the orphanage? I can't remember. But yeah, basically they're almost like, if not like brother and sister, almost like a father and daughter, isn't it? That's the impression you get. Yeah.
He's been around their entire life and helped raise her and understands her probably better than anyone else in the game, and has the closest relationship with her from anyone else in the game. So you land on your first beach. This is all cutscene, I think, story. There's no gameplay here. And the whole expedition, with the exception of Lune and yourself, are immediately wiped out.
Again, another shocker, right?
just everyone is obliterated by an old man and a walking stick.
Which, again, for me, and again, look, maybe I allowed myself to really get wrapped up in the game, but just made him look like this mega powerful being, right? You already knew straight from the start that, yeah, this guy means business, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he has godlike powers and just
there was no mercy. There was no mercy. It's not like, look, turn around and I'll give you a chance, or like the normal villain exposition. No, he just wipes them out.
Yeah, all gone. So that's essentially where you start your journey. So you are Gustav, and I guess this is, albeit there's the training mission to begin with, which is just kind of dancing around the city and having a bit of a training session with Mael. This is where the training session really kicks in. So you start to learn some of the beats of it. There's a very clever mechanic within the game. No, it's not a mechanic. It's like the, where cliff edges have little white dashes on them to make sure you know where you're going. So when you're in an area that isn't the world map, and we'll talk about that in a little while, when you're in the story areas, you are led by lamps, essentially. So where you see bright lamps, that is your trail to follow to continue the story areas. And then there are little there are little side paths that lead to side bosses and, things like that. But essentially, if you want to do that, so that it kind of teaches you those beats. Those are the places that you should go to follow. And so you, as Gustav and Lune, essentially start following down these paths and getting to a couple of minor skirmishes, I think it's fair, which are fairly easy. But what's great about the combat is when you start with a character, and I think this does this with Mael when you first start with Gustav, it teaches you their speciality. So each character has a specific way of fighting, a specific way of dealing combat. And Gustav can mark people, but he also has this, he has a meter that builds up over a number of rounds. And then when you unleash that meter, I think it's lightning damage. He can do
overcharge, I think.
The overcharge. He can do significant damage with it. And overcharge builds not just on action points, but also on free shots as well. So it's kind of his will build over a variety of different actions. So should we talk a little bit about the combat now we've set up the game? Yeah.
All I was going to say is, just make sure you are paying attention to that, because I wasn't. And I think I said to you yesterday, I allowed myself to get carried away by the story, and I was struggled quite early on and getting frustrated with it until I then went into the menus and took time to learn about the weapons, the skills, what you'll come onto after, like the pigtails. And then it became a whole much better game once I actually invested in the mechanics. But don't play it as an adventure. Play it as the RPG it is, or turn-based RPG it is.
Yeah, absolutely. The combat is interesting. So it's based on your traditional Japanese JRPG turn-based combat with added extras that bring it to life and make it something very different that I thoroughly enjoyed. Whereas, as I said before, I haven't enjoyed turn-based combat. For me, it's a bit dull and a bit lifeless. This is very much the opposite I think for two main reasons. One, which is a bit of the secret sauce, which is the action points. So action points are a major part of combat, and they are earned through achieving certain actions throughout combat, whether that be striking an opponent, hitting them in a weak spot with a free aim. So at the beginning, you can spend action points before you even start fighting or take an action. You can use free aim, which is essentially like shooting. So you have the ability to aim a cursor on screen and take a shot, much same as you would in a first-person shooter, and that will take an action point. But you can also earn action points by the other part of the game, which is a secret sauce, which is the reactive defense, which is either through a perfect dodge or a parry. So let's just talk a bit about this, because this is important and it's core to the gameplay. So unlike other JRPGs or turn-based combat games, in this game, you can parry enemies' attacks. The timing window for which is, I think fair to say, relatively small. And it is a real risk-reward action. Parrying, if you get that timing right, you will not only gain an action point for use in your next turn, but you will also do significant damage, because what you do...
Very much. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And it really does, flick that little switch in your head. You go, oh, I've got that right. And it's credible. You can also dodge. Dodging window is significantly larger, but if you dodge at exactly the right time, you will get a perfect dodge, which will also earn you an action point. Now, that sounds really straightforward. Oh, I just hit a button when it says, or it's more likely there is each enemy type has a specific sound that it makes when it attacks, specific to that enemy, that if you key into that sound, can use that to trigger your parry. So hit the button when that sound happens, you'll likely hit the window, which again is a brilliant piece of development, because that key, if you know what it is, makes the whole window easy to hit.
I've also seen this week, there is a very subtle visual clue as well, where the screen, I think, is zooming out. And when it gets to, there's a certain point when it pulses very brightly, or when you have to get used to it, but when it's got to its most extreme, that's when you then also do it.
I hadn't recognised that, so I'll have a look next time I play. Because some enemy weapons do have a glint on them, so they will glint when you have to hit parry, but all of them have a sound effect that will allow you to, if you key into it, will allow you to understand. Again, this all sounds really straightforward. What you have to understand if you haven't played the game is these attacks are not just one-off attacks. They're not just we'll make a noise and do it. They will attack in succession, sometimes in multiple numbers. So you might have up to 10 attacks in certain bosses to block.
And you have to block them all, don't you? Or parry them all.
And you have to parry them all to earn the action point. But you do get one per block, which is great, especially towards the end. And this is why enemies generally tend to build up multiple parryable attacks as you go through the game, because at the beginning, you don't want to give everyone, if you're great at parrying, hundreds of AP points to spend. Otherwise, you would just end up mullering people. But what also comes into play is you then also have a jump button.
Yeah.
So certain attacks cannot be parried, and this is a giveaway because they do have a symbol on screen and these windows are significantly bigger, but essentially you can then jump those attacks which are jumpable and parry with the right trigger upon jumping. So I can't
remember the name they give it, but I think they even on the parry, I think they add another layer. So you've got 4 things technically you can do. And like you said, if you do the wrong one, it can wipe out half your energy or your HP or whatever. So,
and that's where the risk reward comes in. And then even later, you then have gradient parries.
That's it, gradient.
Right. So there's then additional layers on top of these things to parry gradient attacks with a different trigger. So it becomes almost rhythm game-like, which is a fascinating addition to turn-based combat. And makes it much more interactive. And that's what brings it to life for me. It's not that dull, I've just got to pick a heel. And then you get into the characters and their actions and what they can do and how they work in harmony with each other to bring different things to the table. Because very early on, it's about, and certainly even mid-game, it's about having support characters who can heal, debuff, things like that, as well as heavy hitters who are able to actually do damage or AoE. So there's a whole learning curve about how to build the right party out of a total of 5 characters. We'll come to the other characters later, who are essentially, you've got then this lovely pick and mix bag of people who can do different damage types, different elemental types, and then start really understanding how that combat works against specific enemy types and even certainly against different boss types.
Yeah. And that's all I was going to add extra. So yeah, if you're thinking, saying, oh no, it's listening, you're still dodging and parrying. Even I think I played it on story mode. Even then, and I played it before, they released an update, I think, which made the parry window slightly easier. Well, sorry, slightly bigger. I'm not going to say easier because even after that.
It's not easy.
But it's not, even on easy mode, the fights are still a challenge. So you're not, don't expect it to be a walkthrough. And like you said, the difference, I guess, from some of these games is that the 3 people you've got, you're actually thinking 2 characters ahead. Right, well, if I use this character's special move, how does that relate to the 2 moves I've got coming up? Yeah. And so I guess we talked about Final Fantasy VII. While it's not turn-based, there's that stagger meter. Yes. And you're thinking, right, that person's got that spell, I can use that to bring it up. I think this game, Expedition 33, sort of takes that kind of thing and amplifies it, because you can start making the characters, complement each other, and you can think 2 people ahead, not 2 moves ahead, 2 people ahead.
And what you actually have is a really good point about the stagger meter. So Expedition 33 has a break meter. So each enemy has a break meter which sits underneath the health bar, which is essentially a gold bar that builds up. If you can build that bar up, you will essentially stagger them. So they'll go into a can't attack mode, and they will be staggered for anything from 1 to 3 rounds normally. And at that time, you also then do, I think it's an extra 20 or 25% damage to them. So that again becomes another mechanic to layer on top, because certain actions that you take or certain actions that your party take or buffs that you give yourself, like powerful or things like that, will build that meter up for the enemy much faster, staggering them and allowing you to do even more damage. So I think the point is there are multiple layers to the combat, which makes it a much more interesting and diverse way of defeating enemies than just selecting a spell and waiting for the health points to drop down, which what it often felt like to me. And I'll say it now because I think I've said it before on the podcast. I fell in love with the combat, not the story initially. That was what got me back to it. When I found my way out of the underground bit, the underwater bit that I lost my way around, when I started playing again, and particularly when I got to the Gestural Village, when I got to the Gestural Village and started fighting the battles there, the little arena battle, that was when for me it really kicked in. I was like, I understand the combat now. I get it. And because I get it, it's made progression simpler. And so now progression's simpler, I can start thinking about, do I like the story? And then as it got through the second and third act, and it wasn't until really into the third act that I fell in love with the story. Before that, I had reservations, which I'd mentioned here, that actually dissipated because of the way the story played out, which we will talk about when we get into proper spoiler territory on story. So yeah, the combat is fantastic. There are other layers to the combat, and they sit within your skills. So skills are essentially the elements that you build action points to use. So your currency is action points. Your payoff is your skills that you're able to use. And each skill has a different action point number that you have to have. So certain higher damage skills will need 5 or 10 action skills, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's why they're important. But those skills can then be enhanced with pictos.
Which is the thing I completely ignored. And that's why I was struggling, people.
Right. Yeah. So pictos are essentially buffs to skills that you have, or they give you passive buffs to certain things. So one might be you start every round first. Doesn't matter what happens, that buff means that whatever happens, you start that first. Some are character specifics. So for instance, for a character like Verso, who relies on enhancing his level of, I can't remember what they call it, but his level of stance every action he takes. So if he parries successfully, he'll get a little bit more, and he goes from an E rank through to an S rank, I think, in terms of stance. And the better his stance, the higher the damage. So if you're S stance, you will always do maximum damage. So he relies on that. One of the buffs might be you start at a specific level each time and don't know, or action points. You get a level instead of action points on parrying, things like that. So there are these passive buffs that happen through another currency called pictos, which you pick up throughout the game. They can either be hidden or littered around the map in little offshoots and sideways, etc.
Yeah, if you go exploring, you're bound to find a picto. But what I love about this system, though, is, and I remember seeing something online and thinking, why would people choose those? But it kind of makes sense depending on how you play. Some of them are quite negative. Like there might be one that says, for example, you might deal 150% damage each attack, but you can never heal yourself in the round. Some might be that when you get down to like, I can't remember, let's say like 5% health, you'll deal 300% damage. I was thinking, why would you do that? But then some people were recognizing that what that meant is when you were then towards the end of the battle, if you were in dire straits, you could potentially have this mega attack. And it's those little trade-offs between, so it's not all, oh yeah, this is going to buff you up, this is going to make you stronger, this is going to make you more points. It's like, right, that's going to make me stronger, but I can't heal. And I'll find I'm needing to heal myself, or you can't cast this spell. And so it's a clever looking ahead. It's not just I'm going to stick that because it's great. It's like, well, that one might have a negative attribute to it, but the positive bit might totally outweigh that. But it might be that you only get to that when you're in dire need. So it's a clever system.
Very clever. Like roulette will give you, you'll deal 50% more damage, but you'll take 50% more. But it won't always be that. It'll be one or the other, depending on what so they're really clever. And what's great about the pictos is once you've slotted a picto of which you can select 3 per character, once you've been in 3 battles with a Picto, it will then be available as a Lumina.
Yes.
So a Lumina is essentially a passive buff that you can apply based on a Picto to your characters. And each character has a certain number of Lumia points. Lumina points can be, so you can buy them from merchants, or you can find them littered around the map, and you can assign them at your will. So say a character has 50 Lumia points available. Each Lumina has a value. So out of a possible 50, it might be a Lumina costs 10 and another one costs 5. And you can build them in any which way you want. For those who've played Hades 2, it's similar to the way that the card system works in Hades 2. So the tarot card system is very similar to that. You can select a number up to a total point value that you've assigned to a character. And this, again, gives you specific skills that are passive that allow that character to have those skills active, but not have the actual Picto associated with them. So it's, again, more nuances, more layers, more ways to enhance and beat your character. And this is why I think the game came out in late April, earlier this year. By June, July, there were people kind of performing with Mael, hits that were worth 1 billion points and things like that, because they found these builds that were just unbeatable to the point where the developers had to go in and start basically stopping and
buffing them, nerfing them. Sorry, but there is something important to say though. Early on, is that there is a damage limit. Like any attack for a long part of the game can only do like 9,999 damage until later on in the game. But that's what I get it, but I do wish they could have taken that cap off a bit earlier in the game.
Yes, it's not until you beat one of the story bosses that you've discovered and it's a Picto that you have to pick up and use. And the mistake I made, I think I said to you, the mistake I made was, first of all, I was wandering around after that battle going, this is quite hard now, but not realizing I hadn't put the Picto onto my L. So I hadn't used it at all. And then after that, after I used it, she was doing loads of damage and the other two weren't. I was like, why? I haven't bought it as a Lumina for them. So then I was, So that's the other thing I've been thinking about as well, is that it's a game for me anyway that encouraged me tinkering around a little bit with the systems. Normally it's like you find, right, that's a great build for that person, I'm leaving it. That's a great weapon for that person, leaving it. But you find them and then you do get tempted. You say, oh, that Picto looks interesting. And then, like you said, when the fact you can turn it into a Lumina, etc. So it does reward you. And look, you can play through with a very same-ish build for a long part of it. But I think if you can invest a little bit of time in it, it is a very rewarding system. And there are elements in this game that make that much easier, much simpler. Yes, to go with that.
Yeah.
So one is you have attribute points that you earn through experience, much the same as any other RPG, that can be assigned to one of, is it 4 or 5? I can't remember if there's 5 attributes. Yeah, but essentially, you can assign attribute points, but you can also respec at any time without cost on attribute points. You also have skills which you are assigned a number of points for leveling up, as per most RPGs. Those, however, you can only respec if you spend is it called a repaint? I think. A repaint point, which again are available from merchants all found around the map. So you can use repaint to basically reset your skills. But there's plenty of them and they're plentiful enough that, I don't think you'll ever get stuck not being able to repaint if you're stuck in a battle or whatever. Because skills, again, are point value system. So you will earn a number of points and you can buy them. And the more powerful they are, more points they cost. Essentially, they go up. And again, it's a really clever way of kind of gatekeeping, not just becoming a superhuman and killing things. Then there's other things that are layered on later on. There are gradient attacks, which are attacks you can take prior to your go. It's basically a free shot at an enemy. Some of them will perform certain functions, like it will just plain damage. Some will heal the party. Some will perform an action that might happen a bit later on after another round. So there are lots of them. And you unlock others through certain actions, be it side quests or building relationships with other characters in your party. So again, lots of very layered nuances to the combat that make it much more exciting than it normally would be. The other thing there is then is weapons. Yes, so there are multiple weapons, probably in excess of maybe 10 or so per character. And each of those weapons performs better depending on the stats that you have in your attributes, to the point where towards the end game, I had essentially stacked, I think because one of the weapons I was using with Verso relied on agility, I just had 99 agility. And I think the other stat it relied on was luck. So I'd pumped another, whatever was remaining into luck just to make that weapon more performant. So I didn't even worry about defense. I didn't worry about vitality. I was literally just going because that weapon did more damage with those. So again, another really interesting, and those weapons in themselves have different effects that you can't swap out or change. They are just passive effects that sit on that weapon. So one will the one I was using more often was he starts every round in S rank, which means he will do maximum damage in his first attack. And it's ridiculous, to be honest. It's so good, but it's just ridiculous as a game because you can walk through a lot of the lower level fights with it. So yeah, I very quickly fell in love with the combat. It was, that tinkering and that just, changing things to get to the right build that I wanted with the right party just became a fascinating exercise to play through the game. So the enemies you're fighting are the Nevrons, which are essentially, I found some of them a bit Dark Soulsy.
Ooh, you've invoked that again now. This
not
episode.
In difficulty,
no,
but in
I
design.
get it. Yeah. There's a vibe about the enemies. Yeah, yeah.
And but they're beautiful as well.
Yes,
and some very clever animations on their attacks and things like that, all weaved into this world around the painters and the writers and the whole thing that this thing's come up with.
And look, you said the name as well, Dark Souls. So there is an element where if you save it, you see these expedition flags, don't you? Which is where you can respec. And when you do that, the enemies reset in the area, don't they?
If you rest at a flag, the enemies will respawn.
Yeah.
Which is great if you're in an area where you've got a bunch of enemies that are easy to beat but give off a ton of experience points because you just literally grind and you it does make the game a lot easier, but you have to get that good first, I think. Without the and a parry I can actually achieve in this game, which is I can't do in Dark Souls. So so that's essentially the setup. So should we talk a little bit about the characters while we're here?
Yeah, talk about the characters and who your main party was, because we had a very slight difference, I think.
We did, yeah. So you have, I'll just talk about them first, just so people are aware of what they are. So you have Gustav, he's one of your starting characters. He's kind of an engineer type. He's on his last year going through this, and he's voiced by Charlie Cox in the game, he of Daredevil fame. And he's kind of the leader, I think. He's kind of that, he's got that heroism kick. He's not bombastic or silly. He's just, he's quite heroic as a character.
And he's the character you start with, isn't he? Basically,
he's your main character. Yeah.
Yeah.
You then have, we said he helped raise Mael, who's voiced by Jennifer English, and she won the award, the Game Awards for that. She was an orphan 16-year-old. She's younger than the other party members, but she's just trying to get away from Lumiere and the life that she built there, and so she decides to volunteer for this expedition. You then have Lune, who was a researcher and elemental mage. So she's kind of driven, I think I said before, by the work of her parents and was designed to be just raised to take over from where they left off if they failed at their expedition. You've got Skiel, who she's a warrior. She's kind of quite calm and centered, not self-centered. She's calm and centered. And she's kind of the center of the group. She worries about failure, but she also perseveres. She's not phased by death though. She's just kind of like, if it happens, it happens. Yeah.
And out of those four, like your Gustav and Mael are like your attackers really. Lune's sort of like your spellcaster healer sort of thing, isn't she?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't know how you would describe her because she does all the card build-ups.
She's got a very different way of building attacks. Yeah. So she's voiced by Charlotte Nix, I should have said. And then you have Verso, who we'll get to how you encounter Verso. He's not immediately there at the beginning. He comes in Act 2, and he's someone who's been tracking the party since they landed, and he's a bit of an odd one that the story grows around. I think it's fair to say he's voiced by Ben Starr. People will be familiar with Ben's work previously, and he's interesting. I won't talk about his character specifically because when we talk about the narrative of the story and get into spoiler territory, we'll talk a lot more about that.
Spoiler alert then, yeah.
I will, yeah. And you also have Monoko, who is a Nevron. So he's a Nevron that has joined your party. I can't for the life of me remember the guy who voiced him, but I'm sure Dan will pull it out of the bag at some point and he'll tell me. But he is essentially, he has a very... he has a very interesting mechanic again. So if he is in your party while you defeat other Nevrons, he has a fetish for feet and will take their feet at the end of the battle and therefore learn their skill for use against other Nevrons, which I think is brilliant. It's so, when I found that out, he became a mainstay in my party for quite a while because I just wanted to kill more things and find more feet and just see what skills he had.
Sorry, voiced by Rich Keeble.
Thank you. So his interesting point is he doesn't actually have a skill tree like the others. He literally has any skills available to him once you've killed the corresponding Nevron, which is, again, is really interesting to have that dynamic in an RPG. It's normally like, even character swapping, you have to build those characters just in the same way. Each person, yes, this skill tree applies, it might be slightly different to the other one, but it applies the same way. Whereas Monoko's it's a completely different way of building his skill set. You actually have to kill them. And I love that about him. I thought it was brilliant. And he's quite funny as well.
Yeah. His voice actor, and look, and I've said it a number of times on this pod. I think all the voice acting is brilliant. Monoko has got a great voice. It is an interesting one with me because my main was Gustav, Mael, and Ciel. It's a weird one. Ciel I avoided at the start because I just didn't get her powers or her moves. But then once I got it, she was in my party all the time. And again, it's about thinking. It's what I said earlier. It's one about thinking a couple of moves ahead. I think that's where she becomes really effective. And Monoko is a funny one because, I love the idea of him, but unless you've got him in the party sort of fairly early on, I think, then it makes it harder to pick him. So I think on a replay, I think I'll definitely use him more. But I went with, it was Gustav, Mael, and Ciel. Yeah.
So I had Gustav. When I found Ciel, I used Ciel. So I had Gustav, Mael, and Ciel. It's confusing. Then when I found Monoko, I swapped out Ciel for Monoko and had Gustav, Mael, and Monoko for quite a while. Then I got into I was defeating one of the side bosses that required a lot of lightning attacks to defeat. So I swapped Lune back in and just found some of her skill set incredible, plus her support role. And so I actually kept her in the party from about mid-Act 2 all the way through to the end. So that they were my core for the final half of the game, was really Mael, Verso, and Lune.
Yeah, but it's interesting how different people have different parties.
Yeah, totally.
It shows they are all useful. None of them, you've done it with Monoko. He barely featured in mine, but that's not to say then he's a bad character because you're dependent. So it's good use of multiple characters, which makes every game slightly different, or each game can be slightly different. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it. Another playthrough, you could find different tactics, different ways of defeating specific enemies. And there are plenty more areas to go to So let's talk a little bit about the map then. So the map there is an overworld map, which is a large exploration map. It's quite big actually when you look at it, and when you open up more abilities, it's quite large. And your main mode of transport around the map is a character that you meet roughly I think it's towards the end of Act 1, isn't it? It's towards the end of Act 1, you meet Esquier. Now, Esquier is oh my God, I've heard him called everything. My girls called him a marshmallow with a fat arse, I think was essentially how they described him.
It's not bad.
And my wife's comment was, where's his face? So they're like, and when you see him, and I'll put a picture up, you will understand why he's a bit of an odd character.
He's a very odd character compared at that point in the game. It makes sense, but compared to the other party members, it's quite jarring at first, isn't it?
Yes,
very playful.
He is very playful. He's not a playable character other than he is your main mode of transport around the map. So once you've met him, you can basically move around the map a lot quicker by mounting, that sounds weird, Esquier, and either running around the map, or when you find, so Esquier is in love with pebbles. When you find certain pebbles throughout the story, most of these happen, although one occurs in a side story, he will get different modes of transport. One is to be able to swim. So he can generally run around the map anyway. When you find a specific pebble through the story, he will be able to swim and get you further access to other areas of the map. He will then gain the ability to break through certain items. Sorry, he gets that first. Break through certain items, then swim, then break through coral, which also guards off certain areas of the map. Then much later, you get the ability to fly. So then there's verticality to the map, which is brilliant. I loved that. And then on a certain side quest, you can also gain the ability to go underwater, which isn't really underwater. It's more, you can pick up certain things that are dropped in the water but he gets these abilities, and he is your main mode of transport around a fairly sizable map with, as I said, verticality later in the game, which means there are a lot of floating areas, islands, that you can then gain access to that have side quests, side bosses, little weird things. One area I think we discussed, you go in and there are a bunch of doors there, and you go into one-on-one battles in those doors and you unlock certain things. There's an area that is a beach parkour game with the gestrels, so the friendly Nevrons who allow you to play a game climbing up things, which I hated because the climbing is
gestural games. I gave up. I did a couple, and the volleyball one, if anyone's done the volleyball one, well done to you, because it broke me. This is where I think, and I'd said this to you, this is one of the downsides for me. It felt like those areas, some of those areas were a little bit padding. And I'll give you, for instance, so there was an area, and I don't know if it's linked to something else, and it feels like it might be. There's an area where there's a carousel. And you walk into this area where there is literally, it looks like a whole new level. And you walk in, and then you go up to one area that's just an area, and there's someone there, and you talk to them, and they say, "Can you fix my carousel?" And you walk around the carousel and break 4 bits of ice, and the carousel starts, and he goes, "Thanks." And that's it. And I'm like, what? Why? Why did I just do that? It felt really like games, though, RPGs generally tend to have some of these things, don't they?
I called it their Chiboko racing. It was,
that,
you know, it's like it didn't need to be in there. And it felt really weird, a bit like the Gestural Beats thing. It felt really weird against this whole dark fantasy narrative they've got going on. They're like, oh, my life's about to end in 365 days. But you know what? I'm just going to pop in and climb this tower for a swimsuit.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, because that's all it is swimsuits, isn't it? But I just want to, I do want to back up though what I was saying about SK and being jarring. The only reason I want to say that is because, like you said, it is ultimately is a mode of transport, but he's very childlike in how he talks, isn't he? So I think when you start using him, he shouts out exploration or time for a swim. So I'm talking through your technicals, don't worry. Yeah, and so that's why I'm saying it's jarring, because like the rest of your characters are all these grizzled, they've seen things, right? Yeah, they've seen things. And you've got this childlike character all of a sudden who's flying you around and breaking through.
And there's very much a reason for that, which we can talk about later. But he is a brilliant sprinkle of humour and lightheartedness on the whole thing. But he feels like he fits in intentionally into that, where some of those areas that I was talking about feel a bit like just like chucked in, that was all. But you know, it's a tiny thing in a sea of greatness. I did really enjoy a lot of the rest of it. Yeah, so that's essentially it. And then what you have in the overworld map, there are portals that you can go into, and those portals take you into the third person proper RPG element. And some of them will be very short, and some of them will be more story based and be much larger in breadth in terms of what happens in those adventures. And within those areas, there will be potentially certain side quests that you have that you can, one of them involves, helping Nevrons who are no longer want to be evil, I guess, to become less evil. And at the end of each of those, you can choose to fight them or not. So there's lots of things you can do. And there's many side bosses, chromatic versions, they're called, of the standard enemies, much bigger, much harder, much different attacks. Yeah, they're brilliant. They're really well done.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, I don't know if you're going to talk also, there are like the camp bits where you have to also build relationship between
good point.
Characters.
Yeah. Yes, they will happen at certain beats.
Yeah.
But also you can camp when you're in the overworld map at any time. And that is where you can then upgrade your weapons. And upgrade so you have either in the overworld or in a fight, you can actually use a Phoenix Resurrection, which basically brings, it's not called Phoenix, that's Final Fantasy, isn't it? It's if someone's downed, you can respawn them. You have a health and you have a action point potion, and you can upgrade those as well in the camp.
Yeah, and you can, that's where you up the relationship level with the characters. Yes. And so with the upgrade from the mysterious curator, that's all I'll say.
Yes, the curator, the mysterious, I like what you did there, the mysterious curator who you meet in the mansion for the first time, I think.
Yeah, so basically, I say mysterious because he's also faceless, hasn't he? He's got like a hole in the face.
He's got a hole in the face. So yeah. So that's essentially the gameplay, core mechanics, map, exploration. Let's talk story. And this is where we're going to go deep in spoilers, right? Because there are certain beats that happen within this game that were shocking, I think, for a game of this type. And let's start with the first big one, because that's the one that people will come to first. And that's the one I think you fell off your seat at.
Sorry, go on. No, you finish.
No, I would say I was less perturbed by it, and then I was perturbed by what happened immediately after it. But then there's a reason they did that. So
yeah,
what did you want to say?
No, I was going to say it annoyed me. So we'll say what it is, right? So again, we've said spoilers a number of times. We're in the territory now. So yeah, Gustav is killed off at the end of Act 1, right?
Yes,
and
violently.
The thing for me is, and it was a shock. But the thing is, I'd hoped there hadn't been, but a few days before I'd had it spoiled for me because on a random TikTok video with nothing to do about Expedition 33, in the comments, someone said, Gustav gets killed at the end of Act 1 in Expedition 33. And I thought, you absolute
otter.
Yeah.
I hate when people do that. There's no need.
And so I thought, look,
on a podcast where we're exploring the game and talking about spoiler alerts, I think it's warranted.
Yeah. No, and I thought, well, look, I hope not. But also, but it was shocking. One, because I put a lot of points into him. But two, it just doesn't often happen that the main character. And when we've said before, and I'm going to come back to it later, that for me, I did love every aspect of this game. And the relationships, we talked about in Dispatch how the characters, even though they're animated, feel like there's that chemistry or that relationship there. The bonds between Maël and Gustav especially, you kind of felt that, or I did anyway, and that's where the shock comes from. Yeah,
it was certainly one of the best portrayed in the game was the relationship between those two. I think, the more I think about Maël's character journey, the more deserving of that Game of the Year award you realise it is, as you play through it. And bearing in mind, when we were discussed the Game of the Year awards in our episode, I hadn't finished the game at that point, so I don't think I'd even finished Act 2. So I had a bit of a marathon session earlier in the week where I went through all of Act 3 in one evening and kind of spent 4 or 5 hours playing right the way through. So a lot of it comes together. So it's worth saying a lot of the story and everything that happens comes together in Act 3. So the comments I was making, or about who would deserve it or who is more deserving, was without that as that framing device for me. So Gustav is killed off by the man with the walking stick at the end of Act 1 and immediately replaced
Gustav 2.0.
Gustav 2.0, a character called Verso. Now, Verso is, as we said before, he's this elusive stranger who joins the party and is very mysterious for me, to a very frustrating point through most of the story.
He knows things.
He knows things, but is unwilling to tell things. And he's one of those guys you're going, what the fuck? He belonged on an episode of Lost. That's where he belonged, Dan.
He clearly knows Esquier as well.
He knows Esquier.
And I think Monoko as well, right?
He knows Monoko very well, yep.
But when it feels like they're going to say something, they quickly stop talking about it, which is frustrating. So
frustrating as hell.
He knows things. That's all I'll say at the moment. He knows things.
He does know things.
And he ain't spilling the beans.
He ain't telling you nothing. But this was a problem for me because they immediately replaced a character that you'd really enjoyed playing with in Gustav with a character that was exactly the same as Gustav. To the point where I was going, well, why did you bother fucking killing him? Like, you might as well just have kept, because he's exactly the same type of character. Almost, all right, there are nuances and slight differences in his skill set and how he builds his skills, but essentially it's kind of the same.
It's a replacement. It is, yeah.
And I was, so the whole way through, and bearing in mind at this point, you'd finished the game and knew why, and I hadn't finished the game and was like, I don't get it, why? that
I
it
kept
annoyed
saying
me.
to you, just keep playing. I was saying to you, look, if you can get through Act 2 and you're still
Yeah.
playing the game, it'll all make sense. And
Because in my head, he could have been replaced by a strong female lead, or even Monoko, or, you know, something completely different, but it just felt like I'm just doing the same beats. So it became, it was, you know, and using him was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. Building up his rank and, you know, getting him to the point where he could do massive damage was tons of fun. But as a character, it was just like, and that's why the story for me, I was like, just a bit done with it. You know, I just enjoy the game. And then you get further into the story and a lot of it becomes a lot clearer. So the journey continues with Verso on your crew, and you are essentially still following the same path, which is to get to the monolith, to fight the Paintress and at the big bad and stop the Gommage. As you are going through this journey, certain things are seeded into the game in character moments, particularly concerning Mael and a ghostly figure who Verso refers to as his sister, who has half of her face covered by a mask and is blind in one eye. And all of these things are building towards a mystery which as yet remains unsolved in terms of from the player's perspective. And
add to that a random mansion that keeps appearing that you keep going into.
And this odd mansion that appears that certain actions within the mansion will unlock certain other areas of the mansion or certain items that you can pick up. Etc. And there's a random expedition flag in there that you can rest at as well. So all of these things are playing out. And then you get most of the way through Act 2 and you come face to face with the man with the stick and the girl, the girl of the apparition with the kind of ghostly. So what transpires is that the man with the stick, voiced brilliantly by Andy Serkis, is a chap called Renoir. He turns out to be Verso's father and the father of the young girl who has appeared in
Visions. It's like Visions, isn't it? Alicia, right? Yeah,
Alicia, who has appeared. And they are members of the Descendre family. Descendre. I apologise for my horrific French now ahead of any of these that come out. So they are the Descendre family, and they are essentially immortal. That is how it is expressed to
in the
gamer.
Yeah.
So as a player, you are made to think that they are immortal because Verso, it transpires, has joined other expeditions throughout the years to fight the Paintress, but never succeeded for a very specific reason. You then fight Renoir and beat him, and that then takes you, I think, into... Oh, no. That's about halfway through Act 2. So this is where I come unstuck, because I was talking to you about it, and because you hadn't played it for a while, you were like, no, I think you're pretty near to the end. You're not, because then it... Go on.
Well, no, I was going to say, but it was also difficult for me because I couldn't say anything because I didn't know what you had or hadn't seen. Right. So it was awful because I think I finished it first out of the group of people I know who did it. So then I think Josh Talking Smack was doing it, and I was getting messages every now and then. So I knew when the Act 1 death happens, he messages me and I'm like, I'm here for you, buddy. And then when he was hitting certain things, the same when our friend Joey at GCP was doing the same thing, I was getting messages from him. But with you, because it was so much later, I just, you were saying something and I just kept saying to you, just play the game, just get through Act 3, because I didn't know what I could or couldn't say to you.
Well, I think we went for a walk and I was trying to say, look, I've got to this far in Act 2 and I just thought, Renoir, how far away is how far from the end? And you were like, well, Act 3 is pretty quick, but I think you're nearly at Act 3. And it turned out I wasn't, because what happens is this is where the game really opens up. So you fight and defeat Renoir. You're then tasked with finding a weapon that will allow you to pierce the veil to get through to the Paintress's heart, which is the thing that will allow you to ultimately defeat her. So the way to do this is defeat two giant bosses called Axons. One is Serene, who is a dancing weird thing, but massive end of level boss battle.
Yeah.
The other one is, oh my God, what's the other one, Dan? It's not Reacher. That's the third Axon that you can choose to go and fight. The other one is, oh my God, I can't remember what it is.
No, I can.
You're gonna have to find it because Dan can't remember. I only did it last week. But essentially, you fight at second Axon. Once you defeat both of those, you then have the materials required to create a weapon, which just turns out to be a sword that only Mael can wield. At that point, you can then go and choose to pierce the veil and go on to fight the Paintress, or you can choose to just do some optional other quests around the map, and the map opens up significantly. You gain abilities with SKA that allows you to traverse the map easier and open up certain areas. I think what's nice about the map is certain areas, the portals are tinted red, and when you go towards them, it will say, if you're woefully underpowered, it will say danger.
Sure.
Danger. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, just on the accents, you've got the Hauler, the Reacher, Serene, and you've got the Visages.
The visages, the paint, the faces. So yes, absolutely right. I didn't do the fourth accent.
No, I didn't know about the fourth. I remember the Visages, the Serene, and the Reacher. Yeah.
So the visages are, if you think of those kind of the drama face masks, they're like those happy, sad, angry, and the attacks of that enemy are based on each one of those things. And again, you can parry, dodge, all these sorts of things. So defeat those, and then you can go through and defeat the Paintress. From a story beat perspective, obviously, essentially, you move straight on, you pierce the veil, and go on to fight the Paintress. At this point, again, spoilers for anyone who wasn't paying attention earlier, you discover that the Paintress is actually Aline Desandre, Verso's mum and Renoir's wife. And this is why Verso has never been able to, with an expedition, defeat her. Because it's his mum.
Yeah.
And killing her, at that point in the story, your understanding is killing her would be the end of him and his longevity. That's not quite the case, as we find out as we go further through the story. How far do you want me to go into this, Dan? Because we're in both feet now.
No, I think we should do it. We've given enough warnings. I think we should just sum the ending up, because there's a major point there as well. But yes. I think we should go for it. Yeah.
So, Aline Desandre is a member of the Painters Guild, and at this point, you discover, or just past this point, after defeating her, you discover that the Paintress was never actually your true enemy. The Paintress was Aline Desandre, who had trapped herself intentionally in a painting to escape the grief that she had suffered after losing her son, Verso, in a fire at the mansion that you've been exploring. I'm hoping I'm getting all of this right, because I'm doing it from memory at the moment.
No, you're right. Yeah. So there's a fire. You'll probably mention no more. There's a fire. Yeah, Verso, the son, dies in it, saving Alicia, who was his sister. She gets disfigured.
She gets horribly disfigured and burnt. And the mum and the dad are both distraught with grief, and she retreats into her painting. The Painters are a guild of mages, essentially, whose weapons are paint and canvas. And there is the Writers, who are another guild whose weapons are word and scripture. So there's lots of backstory behind this. But it transpires that the Paintress was never wiping out people at a number. She was trying to warn people that was the age that you had left. The true villain of the story, in great Hollywood style, is actually Renoir.
I was going to say villain, depending on the way you look at it.
What did I say?
No, you said villain, but what I'm saying is, depending on how you look at the story, is he a villain or not?
We can get to that. Sorry. Sorry. Let's go a different way. The true antagonist of the story is actually Renoir, who is the one who is wiping out the population. But it transpires that the population is actually all a figment of the painting. No one you've met in the entire story is actually a real person, other than Verso, who is a recreation in the painting of her dead son. Mael, who is a recreation of Alicia, who is still very much alive, but outside of the painting. And I think they're the only real Renoir and Aline.
Well, and Renoir, who is the curator.
He is also the curator, the faceless man.
Yeah, and the one thing I was going to say, so it's my recollection that the painting you're in is Verso's, and that's the reason why the mother Aline could use it, is because it's got part of his soul. I think that's what it's described as, part of his soul.
Yeah, something like that is the So it becomes a bit meta.
Yeah,
and
fucking brilliant. No, I swear, I don't swear often, but I love it. I love it.
It was, and so what that means, and why my level of frustration around introducing Verso as opposed to Gustav dissipated very quickly was that Gustav was always intended to be a brother/father figure to Mael, who was always Alicia, and therefore Verso was just stepping into that natural gap that was left when Gustav died as that same character. And you see that in their character growth as they bond and become more familiar with each other throughout the story. So the fact that I was frustrated they'd just done the same thing, it was intentional because that was the whole story beat all along.
Yeah. And look, you know, how many games can confidently pull off a rug pull like that? Like, look, I often don't go looking. There are some people who start a mystery film and they're actively trying to work out who it was who done it. I'm not. I like to have that surprise. And yeah, the fact that, you know, and the way they make her look quite ominous, you know, the paintress in the background at the start painting that number, people disappearing, she's evil. But no, it's Renoir who's trying to wipe everyone out. And she's actually protecting them. Her magic is just staving it off by 1 year at a time, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So she's able to do that. So you've got this battle between the inhabitants of a painting now against an enemy, but you've got a battle against a husband and wife in the real world, technically. So
essentially, I mean, it's grounds for divorce, I think, Dan.
It's incredible. That's why I love this game so much for the story.
It is so well done, and I think you're right. It was done with, you said, how many games could pull off a rug pull like that with such confidence, and that's the key word. It was with such confidence. It was done strategically, and it was done. There were precision points in there that you were just like, wow, that is. You know, I think I messaged you afterwards and went, all right, it was a fucking awesome game. You're right, you know, because I'm all the way through. I've been like,
I saw it right. And I thought, no, I'm going to let him savor that. It was late, and then I messaged you the next day. But yeah, so
that's not the end though. No, so then your mission clearly is to go and defeat Renoir because you found out he's the antagonist. Let's go and take him down. So you then travel back to Lumiere in the painting still with this knowledge as. Really, from a perspective of Mael at this point, I think as well, where she essentially inherits once you defeat the Paintress, Mael inherits her skills. So she then she unlocks certain skill sets for her that do stupid damage, but she then becomes a Paintress. So she has that skill set within her character, but also within the narrative of the story. So you fight your way through Lumiere and you end up in a final battle with Renoir. And Renoir at that point pulls on the powers of all of the axons. That would explain why there were 4 when I was fighting him, wouldn't it? Because there were 4 of them and I missed one of them.
Yeah.
So you fight Renoir, who pulls on the powers of the axons and essentially has this ridiculous superpower that can just wipe you out if you're not careful or of a high enough level. And at the second time of using it for me, it might have been more for other people. I don't know how it quite plays out. Mael essentially strikes him down and stops him from a story perspective. You basically get his health to 0 and she jumps in and stops him from wiping your party out. I don't know where to go next for this, Dan, because I'm like, it's a bit...
Well, shall we just get to the bottom line then?
After defeating Renoir, you are, as Verso, he decides that he cannot accept the continuation of the painting. So he steps into the painting itself, another version of the painting, to stop his soul from continuing the story. Mael very quickly joins him afterwards, and you are faced with a choice.
Yeah, but at that point, everyone has been wiped out in the painting.
Everyone's
so
gone.
Just Mael,
everyone has been
Gamage, and it's destroyed. Just Mael and Verso. So you've headed back to,
you've gone back to Lumiere, you've wiped out. I can't remember how it quite happens because you go back at one point and everyone's celebrating, going, it was,
you're the heroes.
So after the Paintress dies, you go back to Lumiere. We'll just take a step back. After you defeat the Paintress, you go back to Lumiere, everyone celebrates, and in the midst of that celebration, that's when you discover that Renoir is the true antagonist and everyone dies. That's when you also discover that Mael has the Paintress ability, and she repaints your party into life, allowing you to then progress to go back to Lumiere in the painting and defeat Renoir. So that's how it happens. Thank you. I've got the beat right now. Then you get back, and after you defeated Renoir, you step into the painting as Verso, in an attempt to stop your soul, your younger soul, a child painting, who you've seen throughout the story actually at different parts as this shadowy figure. Mael very quickly joins you, and you are faced with the choice. You can either fight Verso as Mael to continue the story of the painting and what happens in the painting and essentially keep that painting alive, or you can fight as Verso against Mael to stop the story of the painting and allow his family
him to rest.
Move on, to rest, and his family to move on and grieve.
Yeah.
And they are the two endings of the story.
Yeah.
Dan, you picked a certain one.
We picked different ones.
Unbeknownst to me, I picked a certain one.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about your one? Because I don't know about it.
I'm really pleased and fascinated and interested that we chose the different ones, right? And this tore me up because it's not an easy decision, but I went with the Mael ending. So basically fight Verso to bring everything back. The reason I did that, right, is because we have played 20 odd hours of a game, and it's not like these people are just as in like robots. They have got feelings in the game. You know, they experience pain, they experience love, they experience grief, right? Also, again, kind of because we can't go all the detail would be here all night, but you've got Alicia, who is Mael's real version.
Yeah.
After the fire, you know, she can't speak. Like you said, I think she's blinded in one eye. She's become a recluse. You know, she's clearly obviously grieving. And the other thing about this game is the whole guilt thing through it, because her brother died saving her. And, you know, it's almost made to sound like she hasn't got a life anymore because of the grief and the pain and the suffering. But in the painting, she's living the life that a 16-year-old no 16-year-old girl should be having these battles and you know, fighting these godlike deities. But she's able to almost like have the life that maybe she's missing in the real world. So because all of that, because the people were experiencing grief, were experiencing feelings, and because of Mael, and because you kind of grown close to all these characters, I thought for me, no, I want them to carry on. Now, there's a horrible bit for anyone who's done it, where you've got Verso just saying, look, almost like, look, please, I want to go. I don't want to live this life, you know, because it you know, it's his part of his soul. And whilst that was so horrible to take, you know, that's the ending I went. And we've said, I mean, I won't say it at the moment, but I clearly think the developers make sure you know that's not the one that I think you should have chosen. Yeah. But yeah, that's why I went for that, because I just felt like those people were more than just brushstrokes on a canvas. They had,
or ironically, they were.
Yeah. But it's like I said, if they'd done it something weird where they made everyone seem quite cold and like, you know, that they didn't care about the guy. But like I said, you've invested all this time, and even though I think my head was saying the other ending is the correct one, the heart went for that one. And poor Verso, he will have to put up with it.
Yeah, it's. I said to you afterwards, it's a really interesting dichotomy. I think it's they've done it, they've played it really well because of the way they've done it. So I saw the other side of it, and whether that just speaks to us as individuals, I don't know. It was a head and a heart choice, and I think you went for the heart choice, and I went for the head choice because all the way through understanding those characters and living with them and understanding their backstory, for me, all of their story ended with a point where it was like, what's the point? So Scales was actually, my husband died, and all I've wanted is to be with him, you know, because he died in a gommage however many years ago it was. And Lune's was, my parents just wanted me to exist to continue their work. So therefore, what's the point? Minoko was different because he was just a gestural that was, you know, one of the ex-Nevron type things anyway. So he was like, so I was kind of going through the game going, well, they've all kind of made a choice that they're not that bothered anyway. And then the tipping point was Verso kind of being like, well, I I don't want to do this anymore. I want my family to move on with their life and try and be happy. And I want my mum and dad to stop fighting. And I want, all of those things as a kid, you kind of like, if I could solve that, I would. And that's the place I went to. And I think I said to you, had I gone with my heart, Joyce, I'd have done the same as you. But I also knew deep down, not that you told me, I was like, I know which one Dan would have chosen. I know Dan would have chosen my L. I just had it in my head. And I was like, it's going to be a really fucking boring discussion if we both chose the same option and we never had anything. So I went with Verso for those reasons. And yeah, I think, having not seen the other ending yet, and I might do a second playthrough to see it, it's a really interesting way that they then finish the tale. So essentially what happens, if you win as Verso, you defeat Mael, and you encourage your younger soul self to stop the painting. And you essentially then cut to a scene of the family. So that is the mother and father, so Renoir and Aline, Alicia and their other sister, who looks an awful lot like Skiel, weirdly.
Yeah.
Around Verso's grave, coming to terms with his death. And there's a very touching moment where, bearing in mind that the two godlike deities have been scrapping it out all the way through, the mum leans on the dad's shoulder and he hugs her. And it's like that reconciliation of them coming to terms with it and not blaming each other for what happened. It feels like the inception of that and the start of that. And that's essentially the ending. And what's lovely is, Alicia is holding a Eskiel stuffed toy. Right. So you then realize that all the way through, the reason Esquier was very childlike in his interactions and is because he was Verso's stuffed toy.
And also Monoko was a dog. Yeah, Monoko was a family dog. So I think there's a picture and there was like Noko, I think was the first.
Noko was the little gestural. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, look, and I'll explain the other ending shortly as well. But you're right. And look, in I was going to say, if this was the real world, with painters who can make things real, look, the reality is the ending you chose, the Verso ending, is the right one because ultimately you break it down, like you said, is about grief, right? And we've all, most people have been touched by that kind of grief, right? And, when you said it's reconciliation, I kind of didn't see it like that so much as they were fighting. I saw it more as so you've got Renoir clearly not come to terms with it, but knew the family has to carry on like most people you do. Whereas the mother, when a family loses something, it might be that the family, a wife, a husband, a son, a daughter doesn't want to touch anything in that person's room and they leave it exactly as it is. And whilst that's a way to maybe keep that person alive with them, the other person, like the husband to that wife or the wife to that husband, is like, no, we've got to move on. And so I saw that is manifested in the game as the fight. So look, your ending absolutely in any sense of the word should be the one people go for, because let the guy pass on. Yeah. Let him rest and let the family move on. Like I said, for me, the added wrinkle was if Mael hadn't been injured and wasn't communicative, I probably might have went for that, but that was what swung it for doing that one. But in my ending, it's weird because obviously everyone gets written back in, but it finishes in a really sinister way. So they're sitting down, it's like at a concert, and you've got a piano, and Verso rocks up, and I think in the ending, Gustav's back. Yeah, Verso rocks up, sits at the piano, looks over at Mael in the audience. And it goes black and white, and it's almost like she's turning into the vision we saw of like Alicia, sort of like she's
painted eyes and
slightly disfigured, and I think that comes from, don't they say that the longer you live in the painting, you start losing your soul or your mind or something? So he's recognised, he knew that's what he was telling us. She was going to fall ill. She was ultimately going to die. In the painting. So it finishes on quite a sinister note. It's like, I need to play it again.
Room for a sequel, Dan?
Yeah. Well, a replay anyway. But the one thing, because I know I forget, because you mentioned it, that my ending threw up is CL, because I chose you can romance one of the characters, and I chose CL. I don't know. Did you romance?
Yeah.
Who
CL.
did you? Yeah. Now I took.
Which is weird now when I think about it. She looked like his sister.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm now going to
Game of Thrones, Dan.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to think of that. Now, thank you. I'm gonna invoke the Mass Effect name again. I went through
nearly one episode, not this episode, but nearly one episode without saying it.
But do you remember I said, so generally in Mass Effect, I'll romance Liara, but one of the couple of times when I do it, I'll romance Jack. And the reason being is I think Jack is a perfect romance option for
damaged goods.
Well, you both are, right? In that game, Shepard and her are like, and I feel like they are the perfect coming together of similar people. And in that game, I saw CL and almost like Verso of that similarish type. But the thing is, CL mentions about her husband, and I think it was either a gommage or he died in an accident years before. And I think she talks about, well, you know, if I think when you have the off-screen relations and then you go talk to her again, and I think she says something like, look, it was a one-time thing because you might be able to draw him. She basically says to him, might swap you out in a heartbeat.
Well, she's pretty fucking cold about it.
Well, and I think as it comes, you know, as the story starts unraveling, I think she realizes he might be able to come back with things. And the fact is he does at the end. So it kind of throws up
What's interesting though, because I'm a bit of a sly dog, if you then continue your relationship building with Lune afterwards, you can then get to go off with her.
Oh, okay.
And when you come back with Lune, so from one of the off-screen romances, Skill turns to Verso and gives him a knowing nod or something like that.
Right.
So she's like, yeah, I'm all right with you doing that. Well, so you can actually have your way with both of them if you want.
Well, yeah, but I'm just thinking though, now CL has had the one-nighter with you, but now her husband's back.
Yeah. She's like, well, in your version.
Well, in my version.
In your version.
Well, in your version, she doesn't even exist anymore.
different postcode. I think it's fine. Don't count, does it? So I just do very want to talk about the successes of the game. So this the game. It's brilliant. Please fucking go play it, even if we spoiled it for you. If you have played it, go play it again. All right, just do what Dan did. Go buy it and play it again.
I'm going to play it again. Yeah.
So the game was released on, I think it's the 24th of April, 2025. It sold 1 million units in 3 days and surpassed 5 million by October 2025. But do you know what was unique about this game and what was mind blowing actually, Dan? Do you want to know a fact?
Well, is it because the fact it was on Game Pass and yet it sold that?
Not that. That is in itself a fact. No, the fact is that by its 33rd day, it had reached 3.3 million units. That feels
like that's probably managed accounting, but that's amazing.
I think it might be. I mean, how's that for marketing? Yeah, I mean, 33 days, we got 3.3.
We didn't process the other. No, but that's a cool little fact.
I suspect had it been called Expedition 34, it might have been within 34 days they reached 3.4 million. I mean, I'm not saying they fixed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. No. It's a cool little quirk of coincidence.
It is. And out of a total of, I think it had 11 nominations at the Game Awards this year, it won 9 of them. If you want to know what they were, please go back and check out our Game of the Year episode somewhere.
It's a good episode.
Somewhere. It's a really good episode to watch, even if we do say so ourselves.
Sorry, interrupt you there. If you'd have finished it before that episode, then would it have made your list?
No.
Okay.
I still, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay.
I did enjoy it. I still don't think it was a game of the year for me, but a game I thoroughly enjoyed. But then there were many games that didn't make. I think I said Doom got pipped at the post for other reasons. You know, that would have been on my list previously. It's similar to that. A game I really, really enjoyed, played all the way through to the end, but still wouldn't have quite come above the others that I suggested.
Okay. That's fair.
But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it at the end. I might go and pick it up again, but I got a feeling that Ghost of Yotei is going to take up an inordinate amount of my time over the next couple of weeks now.
Yeah, it will do.
Judging for the first couple of hours or hour and a half. So yeah, 9 awards at the Game Awards, including Game of the Year. Fully deserved. I definitely think, I said, I think all the things that I'd said before, I said about Indiana Jones, the voice acting, Troy Baker, that I think now I've seen the full lot, totally understand why it won. really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And
Great
we've
game.
not even touched on the music, right?
Oh, there's so much we haven't touched on. The music is brilliant. It's not my kind of music, I have to say, actually. Ghost of Your Time. just right there. The music for the first hour or so of that, where they put it in, is phenomenal. It's mad. It's brilliant. But yeah. I think it's just because it's not my style of music, that's all. But it is beautifully done, beautifully written, really emotive as well. It's fantastic score in that game. And again, deservedly won awards for it, right? I mean, it's not, there are reasons this game has won awards. The thing I was saying earlier about it and about it winning awards and some of the backlash, look, I don't really give a shit how many awards it won, but what it did do was raise awareness of a game that is framed as a AAA, but is actually an indie game that brings something new and refreshing to the party. And what I was saying at the beginning of this podcast is that, for me, is what is important about the awards. That it's raised awareness of a game that's come to the scene and done that. I want to see more of that. Yes, please. Because that is the exciting stuff. It's not your fucking churn of Call of Duty's fucking Battlefield or Assassin's Creed or fuck. I don't want that. I want things that do this.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
And what I will say is, look, there is a place for Call of Duty. There is a place for GTAs.
Totally.
But we shouldn't hate on a game just because you either haven't heard of it or it's not your cup of tea game style. I've lost my train of thought. That's what I have.
Well done.
But,
that's both of us. If you didn't think we were old before this podcast, welcome to your nearly 50s.
That your memory gets gommaged year on year, doesn't it? Look,
he's nearly there. He's nearly there. Tip of his tongue.
You say something informative and it will come back to me.
Game's great. Go and watch it. I can tell you what I can say is since the awards, it has had a thank you update, which again, they're still continuing to work on it. So that was new content, including the Endless Tower, which is like continual boss fights, like ridiculous stats, new bosses as well, and some quality of life updates, including the ability to build out loadouts and things like that.
And bosses are almost impossible, though, I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I'm not even going to try that. And also, as we said earlier, it's now certified for Steam Deck and Xbox Ally ROG. So if you did skip to the end and you haven't played it, go and play it on one of those if you've got
I remember my point. It's that it also shows when you let a group of people do a game that they actually care about and want to do. I don't know how much restriction they had or hands leaning on them, but again, let people do what they love, right? And look what comes out.
Project.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All I just want to say one thing. So it's a game, like I said, I love all the parts of it, right? The voice acting, graphics, gameplay. You said about the clever thing, there's no map, follow the lights for the main path, so many cool things. But there's also really a lot of good quotes, and I've got to look at it, right? There's so many things in the game. So we said, like, Alicia says, your mother paints life while your father paints death. What will you paint? Which obviously becomes meaningful later. You've got Mael says, I've had enough condolences. You've got Verso says, our whole world carries the burden of your family's grief. But what I want to leave it with, probably the quote of the game, I just need to find it, it's from Esquier. And he says, I too am woo, but I'm also we, so the we balances the woo. And I'm just going to leave it with that.
There you have it, people. Dan has officially lost it.
No, that's what SQ says.
Right. As always, if you have enjoyed today's episode, I'll deep dive into Clair Obscura Expedition 33, or as Dan called it, Ransom 36.
If you played Ransom 36, let me know.
Please do. Or if you've got any other views on the game itself, please do leave a comment, pop a comment in there on YouTube or Spotify for us. We will be more than pleased to answer. And if you've enjoyed what you've had, I hope we've earned it. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. I'll leave it there. Join us next week for another thrilling episode of Gaming Views.